Part 67. While planning Prince Duan's construction of horse farm, the enemy tried to figure out Thunderbolt. About Mo Jiang's affairs, Mingyu didn't care anymore. He believed that Mo Jiang could handle it well. What he has been thinking about all the time is the Shichi corridor, and he wants to grasp the dominance of it as soon as possible. So, my idea is already very feasible. Mingyu frowned and asked Xie Yishio, who was sitting opposite. The Red Robe army sent out to investigate had already returned. Xie Yishio knew that Mingyu attached great importance to this route, and after returning, he set about arranging for people to explore the Shichi corridor all the way to the west. It has to be said that this area can indeed be used as a choke point for westward travel. In the past, to go to the western regions, it was necessary to pass through the Suishi country. Because of the Suishi country's control over Dayan Country, the Dayan Country's caravan could not pass through safely. This is why Mingyu chose to let Bua Tan set up a caravan in the first place. Bua Tan is from the western regions, and the Suishi country will have a lot looser control over people from the western regions, but even so, Bua Tan's caravan must be handed over, enough passing bank tails to pass. Mingyu has no choice at all. Man is a knife and I am a fish, what else can I do, next to each other? However, with this corridor, they will no longer be controlled by people. Because of the accumulation of the Shichi River for thousands of years, the long and narrow plain area formed by the mountains is cut off on both sides by mountains. It is difficult for the wind and sand in the north to invade, forming a natural shelter. In addition, the land here is fertile, and the army is stationed here. It is also very feasible. Xie Yishio briefly explained the arrangement of the documents reported by his subordinates. That's great. Mingyu was overjoyed. He turned around a few times, patted his palms and smiled. You can get a feasible plan report, this prince will write to the father, as long as the father agrees, everything will be easy. After thinking about it, he shook his head again and said, it's better to go to Beijing and make it clear face to face. In another 2 months, the father emperor will be the eternal saints. Anyway, they all want to go to Beijing. Why don't we take this opportunity to have this matter has been dealt with? Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, why not do it? General Xie, when the time comes, go back to Beijing together, and you can also help to be a lobbyist in this matter. Indeed, 1 or 2 sentences on this matter are unclear. It is not a trivial matter to take the Shichi corridor as one's own, but also to arrange corresponding administrative officials, administrative measures, town planning, garrison plans, etc. This is not something that can be done by just one person. It takes the court's teamwork to make it work. Mingyu came back safely this time, and the emperor finally let go of his fearful heart, but the younger son experienced this unpredictable disaster, and he was also very distressed. Thinking that his birthday was coming, he simply ordered Mingyu to return to Beijing, and specially arranged to enter Beijing as a reward. Your Highness can inform Prime Minister Wen of your plan when you enter the capital. With his support, you will get twice the result with half the effort. With the help of the Crown Prince, it won't be too difficult. Xie Yishio expressed his thoughts. He already knew that some of Mingyu's plans for the Shichi corridor were quite good. As long as the plan was successful, it would not only be of great benefit to the people's livelihood, but also to have great operational space in the military. If you send troops to Shichi corridor, you can go directly to the depths of the territory of Suishi country. In the future, can the war against the barbarians be turned from defense to offense, just like the barbarian invaders invaded Dayan country, using small cavalry to harass and invade the enemy's rear, making them suffer too? The barbarians can do it, why can't they be Dayan country? Therefore, the Shichi corridor is a major event related to the interests of the country, and it will definitely be discussed and decided. There are many factions in the court, and there will definitely be different voices. Prime Minister Wen is upright and selfless, has no party and no competition, and can win his support. Many people are watching the wind, and they will stand in line if they want to come. As long as they get the support of the majority and the emperor's consent, this matter will be settled smoothly. Mingyu nodded, thinking that Xie Yishio was thinking very thoughtfully. Before this prince had written a few words to the royal father. This prince is sure about the father and the crown prince, but it is only with the prime minister. He used to be in the palace. I have never been in contact with important officials in the court, and Prime Minister 1 is unpredictable about his temperament. I am afraid that he is hastily lobbying. Mingyu is a little worried. Generally speaking, royal children are not allowed to collude with courtiers. Even if the courtiers stand allegiance to the prince, it is impossible for the prince to come forward, and they only dare to support it in private, otherwise it will be a serious crime to form a party for personal gain. Wen Yuzhao, who joined the army in the red robe, is the youngest son of Prime Minister 1. He can write a letter to explain the situation, and then I can go to the Prime Minister's mansion. Xie Yishio said after pondering, actually, the most critical issue is the issue of the imperial treasury. In recent years, there have been natural disasters in the south and wars in the border areas. I heard that the national treasury is now stretched, and our border army's money and food have been reduced every year. If the construction of the Shichi corridor requires a large budget, it is estimated that the Imperial Court will be powerless. Mingyu nodded, yeah, all this has to have a plan, there must be persuasive written material, everything is budgeted, so that everyone can have a bottom line, this way it may go smoothly some. He paced back and forth, a little anxious, what Xie Yishio raised was indeed a big problem. With such a good time in front of him, it would be a pity if it stopped because the court was short of money. You know, get through it early. This route can bring huge economic benefits earlier. The investment in the early stage is essential. Without money, everything is empty talk. Mingyu said so. I still have to think of a way to get the best of both worlds. A penny can beat a hero. His current money has been invested in the construction of a horse farm. In the new workshop, these are all gold-sucking beasts at the beginning. Not so fast. And the caravan has only just started to make a little profit, but the money earned is a drop in the bucket compared to what it spends. He now hopes that the caravan will make more money when it travels west again. Speaking of caravans, they have been gone for several months. Maybe they will come back after a long wait. Ah! One person's strength is really limited. Can the operation of the treasury be supported by the import and export of goods, taxes and fees from the caravan? Seeing Mingyu thinking hard, Xie Yishio softly comforted, there is no need to worry now, the ship will naturally go straight to the bridge, and no one can tell what will happen in the future. It is useless to think too much. This is also true. After hearing this, Mingyu simply stopped thinking about it. The solution is not easy. Anyway, there is still so long, so you can think about it slowly. Mingyu let out a smile, that's right. If you want to go to Beijing, count the time and you should prepare earlier. Let's go ahead with the plan first. If something really changes, we'll talk about it later. Yes. Xie Yishio naturally agreed. Because of the emperor's edict, he will also follow Mingyu to Beijing this time. He thought that in addition to the reward for Prince Duan's meritorious deeds, there should be some important instructions from the emperor for the frontier, right? After King Hunal's plan failed, the barbarian army had already begun to retreat. Now it seems that it is impossible for the barbarians to attack in a short period of time. There is no problem with General Wei garrisoned in the border areas, and Wen Yuzhao is in the Red Robe army, so he can rest assured. Moreover, Bing's talent gradually became prominent, and he also had a place in the Red Robe army, and was convinced by everyone. Although it is still a little immature, it is indeed something that must be experienced on the way to growth. Mingyu's vision is very good, and he is indeed a good seedling that can be cultivated. The army of the barbarians had indeed retreated, and the mighty troops marched slowly westward. My prince, it's time to drink the medicine. In a spacious and comfortable carriage, King Hunal, Tuoba Ren slowly opened his eyes and saw Song Lian's fair and delicate face. He had been ill for several days, and he had been fluctuating with cold and hot. It's barely awake until today. Song Lian helped him up, leaned against him, and then put the concoction in his hand to Tuoba Ren's mouth. Tuoba Ren was in a daze for a moment, then he drank it with his hand, and then sighed, "Where have we been?" Song Lian was also very unfamiliar with the territory of Suishi country, and he didn't know where it was now, so he lowered his head and said, "I don't know, but if I'm here, it's already 5 days away from Shichong Gate. Why don't I go out and ask for the prince?" "Song Lian, the wound on your face." Song Lian's eyes were gloomy, and his hand unconsciously touched the long, hideous scar on the other side of his face. The blood had stopped, leaving a deep wound with the flesh averted, and applied some dark brown concoction. Even more hideous. Once a young man, he was praised by the world because of his good skin, and he was full of talent and beauty since then. Later, when he arrived in the capital, he suffered an unpredictable disaster because of this good skin. Now it's better, living in a foreign country with no home. Now that I am in such a situation, I don't know whether it is good or bad. However, this arrow of revenge will always be repaid if there is a chance. Song Lian laughed at himself, shook his head and said calmly, "No problem." Seeing that he didn't seem to care, Tuoba Ren nodded, "We are retreating this time. What will the Yen army do?" Thousands of people were killed by more than 1,000 people of the Yen army. Later, because of the arrival of the Red Robe army, they had to retreat. At that time, he was so angry that he vomited out a mouthful of blood, and he passed out. It has been groggy until now. "No, my prince, don't worry, they don't dare to go out to pursue them," Song Lian said softly. "Thinking about it, if they dare to leave the customs, they will kill as many as they come. Do they really think they can win these iron cavalries?" As for the Battle of Shichi Mountain, Tuoba Ren felt stuck just thinking about it. He never figured it out. Why did this happen? Their iron cavalry has no uneven ground, no invincible formation, just a square formation of 500 people. How can they let their men and horses return? Cough cough. Tell me, why exactly? Our iron cavalry can't even break through hundreds of people. It's unbelievable. Could it be that God is really helping them? Tuoba Ren sighed. Thinking of the sound of thunder in the clear sky, I still have lingering fears. The sky is clear and there is no slight change in the sky. Debris of soil and stone, broken limbs and broken arms are everywhere. This made him have to believe that it was God's will, that manpower was still able to resist, and God's will could not be violated, which made him not angry. "My prince, don't think too much. In fact, in retrospect, I don't think this matter has anything to do with God's will," Song Lian said in a soft voice. These days, he has been thinking about that battle, and asked Uncle Ping to ask many soldiers. Although many people were frightened and unwilling to recall the scene at that time, most of them were incoherent about that battle, but he still got some clues. "Oh. What do you say?" Tuoba Ren felt much better, but wanted to hear Song Lian's opinion. Song Lian went through everything and said slowly, "More than 1,000 of them, when they saw our army chasing, they did not flee, but instead organized a formation to counterattack on the spot. Which shows that they must have the way to deal with our army." Tuoba Ren nodded and motioned for him to continue. "I asked the soldiers who were lucky to survive the charge and said that they were about to break through the enemy's line, but suddenly I don't know why the horse stumbled, so I couldn't control the horse and fell off the horse. The same is true for the people behind. So, I think, it's not that we can't break the phalanx, but the enemy is attacking the horse. There is a saying in China that if you shoot a man before you shoot a horse, the same is true. As long as they aim at the horse and the horse falls, our people are like missing siblings." It was no longer possible to exert its combat effectiveness, and the fallen horses also hindered the charge of the later soldiers. One link after another, I have to say that this method is indeed the nemesis of the cavalry. Song Lian's analysis was very reasonable. Tuoba Ren was thoughtful, and he had dealt with the Yen army for so long. This was the first time he had encountered such a style of play. Could this bad move be the bastard of Prince Duan? Figured it out. I think so, otherwise, why Prince Duan was so calm in the face of the army at that time, it can also be explained. However, how do you explain the sound of thunder? Tuoba Ren asked eagerly. He really wanted to make it clear that if it was done by humans, it wouldn't be scary at all. The real scary thing is the psychological panic that people have about unknown and mysterious things. Zibuyu is eccentric and chaotic. Only after he can truly understand the reason can he be able to break the inner demon. Otherwise, the soldiers will have a huge psychological shadow every time they fight in the future. How can people fight against God? At that time, there is no need to fight a war and admit defeat early. Song Lian didn't think through it at first, but then he gradually understood it. This Prince Duan used to know some strange things. He heard Uncle Ping mention that there are some strange things in Prince Duan's craftsmanship. I heard Tuoba Jiu mention that the craftsmen inside are very valued by Prince Duan. They make a crystal-like thing, what is called a glass mirror, which can show their own appearance in detail. There is also a thing called clairvoyance, which is made by those craftsmen and is said to be able to see things thousands of miles away. To be more careful, Tuoba Jiu had only heard of it, but had never seen it. At first, after hearing it, he laughed and didn't quite believe it. How could there be such a thing in this world? Able to see things thousands of miles away, isn't it a fairy-like object, and people are afraid to listen to it as a joke. But now it seems that is not the case. He is a little doubtful. Are these things true? The cavalry that Prince Duan arranged on the flanks that day was really weird. They didn't rush to kill, but they threw something into their camp from a long distance. Some people saw that they were throwing a fist-sized bottle, and they were still in doubt, and then there was a thunderous sound in their ears. The ground exploded with thunder, the fire blazed into the sky, and then there was the horrific scene they saw. There were deep pits and flying stones on the ground, and the people nearby were inexplicably impacted and flew far away, dying on the spot. The horse was frightened and ran wild, no one could control it, and almost everyone was stunned. Since many people have asked this question, Song Lian now has reason to believe that these bottles are weird, and that all the consequences are due to this. Song Lian repeated his conjecture. Tuoba Ren pondered and said nothing. He has never figured out, what kind of bottle can have such a power to burst, accompanied by a roar of fire. Is this really manpower? However, what Song Lian said was reasonable. Even if it was not manpower, they would have to be implicated in it. Without an explanation, the soldiers would not be able to overcome this hurdle. Maybe we can send someone to investigate the craftsmanship, maybe there will be any clues. Song Lian suggested. Tuoba Ren shook his head and sighed. The case has just been committed in Liangcheng. Prince Duan will definitely rectify it when he returns. It is not appropriate to move now. After a while, the prince will think of a solution. Cough. He coughed after a few voices. He regretted, it's a pity that Tuoba Jiu has been exposed. If he continues to lurch, maybe he can gain something. Song Lian shook his head and said, the management in the craftsmanship is very strict, and the real core is to follow. Prince Duan came from the capital, and the rest were mostly chores from the outside world, and they had no access to the secrets inside. Although young Master Tuoba Jiu was in the craftsmanship, he didn't really know what the real thing was like. Referring to Tuoba Jiu, Tuoba Ren was obviously a little impatient. Although this man was also the son of the previous king, none of the members of their royal family regarded him as a brother. A son of a Chinese woman, is also worthy of being on an equal footing with these princes? Snort. It's because the eldest brother is kind and willing to let him return to the royal court to be an idle king. Thinking of his eldest brother Tuoba Hong, Tuoba Ren's face sank. This mission turned out to be a failure. How did he explain this to his eldest brother when he returned to Wangting this time? At the beginning, it was guaranteed that Dayan Country's Prince Duan would be brought back. Now, not only has he not seen anyone, but he has also suffered heavy losses. I am afraid that the old people in Wangting will have to watch him laugh behind his back again. Song Lian thought it was his remarks that made this person unhappy, and remedied, "Don't worry, my prince. After the matter is over, I will find a way to clear it up next time." Tuoba Ren let out a sullen, he was already tired, and he was just recovering from a serious illness, so his energy and spirit naturally couldn't stand it. Song Lian settled him down, walked out of the carriage, and looked at the southern sky that was drifting away. For some reason, there was a sour feeling in his heart, and he clenched his fists. Can't go back.